Everybody got it? It's in the Mishnah. It's about 8 lines and 6 lines in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi Omer. Rabbi Yossi says. Now, we also want to thank Aaron for his sophisticated thing that he's doing now with the class, that he actually takes a picture of the Gemara and he puts a point, a mark where we're starting from. How do you like that? Okay. So, Rabbi Yossi Omer. Rabbi Yossi says the following. Now we're talking about the warning process. As we said, in order for a person to get, for the Bezdin to kill anybody.
Rabbi, Baruch Hashav, הגומל חייבים טובות, שיגמר לכל טוב.
I mean, thank you very much, Yosef. I'm going to be saying that bracha tomorrow, Bezat Hashem. Thank you very much. Good to see you, Yosef.
Likewise, Rabbi, likewise.
Okay, so we're in the Mishnah of Vavam and Beis. So Rabbi Yosef, we said, there's a halacha, we said that you cannot kill anybody. The Bezdin doesn't kill a person unless the person was warned right before he did the act. The crime. He has to be told, if you do this act, you're going to get so-and-so. You'll get malkut, or a person will get midah, depending on what type of crime. Some crimes get lashes, some crimes get midah bezin, that the court actually kills the person. So the question is, who is the one who has to give the warning to the person, the offender? Does it have to be specific people, the witnesses on the crime have to go ahead and give the warning, or could the warning be given by an independent party? Good morning, Mr. Haber. Thank you very much. Good to see you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. If we have a night, Michael, that Gemara in the corner, that's a nice size Gemara, might be easier for Mr. Haber. See that single Gemara? Okay. I always like the big Gemaras. What can I tell you? I'm a kaim the midst of a half $1 kamocha, doing to someone else which I want to do to myself. So that's why I give Mr. Haber that Gemara. Thank you very much. Good morning, Morris. Good to see you. Thank you very much. Okay, we're back. We're finishing up this first parak. We had last week. You were learning yesterday the end of the first parak. Now we are finishing back to Vavam and Beis. Good morning, Jaime. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Okay.
Chazak Baruch to your son. He was wonderful.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone to being here when he came. So you should know that made his experience a much better experience. That people were here and they were participated. It's really, thank you so much to everyone. I want to thank you for that. That's my thank you. Thank you, Jaime. So Rabbi Yossi Omer, La'olam in the Mishnah Vavam and Beis, La'olam ein harav. What is it? 6B1. What side of the page in the art scroll? 6B1. Where is it? 6B, it's the second paragraph. Rabbi Yossi Omer. Rabbi Yossi says, La'olam ein haragim. We do in all circumstances. La'olam, under all circumstances, we do not kill the defendant. Ad sheyushnei edav matrim bo. You need to have the witnesses. Both witnesses are the ones who have to give the warning to the offender. If they don't give the warning, if someone who's not a witness on the crime, a bystander, someone else is not involved in testimony. He just wants to give. He'll be the one giving the warning, like you had in the Mishnah earlier. What do you have in the Mishnah earlier? There was 2 witnesses on one side, 2 witnesses on another guy, and 1 guy in the middle giving a warning. Right? We had that discussion last Wednesday. There was a guy in the middle, and we learned about the fact that there's a guy giving a warning in the middle. He could join the 2 pairs of witnesses together. If they see, let's say we're going to learn about it. Let's say they see the guy giving the warning. The witnesses see the guy giving the warning. If someone from each pair of witnesses see the guy giving the warning, that will join the 2 groups together. Or if the guy in the middle sees a member of each pair of those witnesses, that will join them together. But the Mishnah said there's a guy in the middle giving the warning, and there's guys on the side viewing it as witnesses. So that early in the Mishnah stated that the witnesses are not necessarily the ones giving the warning. You can have an independent fellow who's not a witness. He's in the middle. I'm in the middle, and you members are here on the witnessing from that side. You guys, you members are witnessing. Morning, Mr. Anthony. Good to see you. Thank you very much. So therefore, you have the guy in the middle giving the warning, but he's not a witness. So we said in the Mishnah earlier, Mr. Adji, we went back to finish what we left off last Wednesday to finish the parak. So the guy in the middle is not a witness. That was the first. That's what the Mishnah stated earlier. Dr. David, is it clear? Vavam and Beis. We had early in the Mishnah the concept that the witnesses do not need the person to give the warning. You can have someone else giving the warning who's not a witness. That's what we stated earlier in the Mishnah last Wednesday. Comes today, we're learning Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He argues on what we said. He says the witnesses have to be the one giving the warning. You can't have someone else who's not a witness give the warning. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. And that's what the Mishnah is going to state now. Rabbi Yossi Omer, La'olam, about 6 lines into the Mishnah. La'olam ein haragin asher shnei idav matan bo. You need to have the 2 witnesses have to be the ones who's giving the warning. Now, where does he know this from? What's his source? Because the pasuk says, Shenema, the pasuk says, Al pi shnayim edim yokum davar. It says, by the mouth of the 2 witnesses, the matter will be established. So he understands the matter will be established by the 2 witnesses. That means the 2 witnesses have to play the role, not only by testifying and seeing as witnesses, since the warning is an integral part of what needs to be done in order to prosecute anybody. And if you're telling me you need 2 witnesses to make things happen, so he understands not only the testimony has to be by these 2 witnesses, the warning process also is part of what's necessary by the 2 witnesses. By the mouth of 2 witnesses, it has to be established. So what has to be established by the mouth of 2 witnesses? Not only what they say they saw what happened, the warning as well. That is the opinion of Yossi. Good morning, Shmuley. So that's what the Gemara says. Al pi shnayim edim yokum davar. That's the first explanation of the pasuk of Al pi shnayim edim. Now the Mishnah now says there's another very interesting law that we learn from this pasuk Al pi shnayim edim yokum davar, that it's the mouth of the 2 witnesses. So the Gemara says davar acher Al pi shnayim edim shelo tehei Sanhedrin shomat mepi haturgum. The court, the Sanhedrin, like we said, you need a minimum of a Sanhedrin of 23 judges on capital punishment, but they need to hear it directly from the witnesses themselves. They cannot hear it from an interpreter. They cannot be an interpreter. You can't have witnesses coming to court talking Spanish, and the rabbis, the rabbis in the Sanhedrin don't understand Spanish, and they ask for an interpreter to explain the words of the translate. They can't do that. Why? Al pi shnayim edim. It has to be by the mouth of the witnesses. You got to hear the mouth of the witnesses, not someone else's mouth. The witness could talk of any language as long as the judges know the language. So the judge said what? So the judge. One of the judges only speaks Hebrew. Right. So therefore, So therefore, one of the responsibilities of the judge is to know many, many languages. I'm going to quote you here in the back. They quote Aliba de Hilchasa. Now here, let's see who they're quoting. Let's see if they're quoting the Rambam or someone. Let's see, Kuf Chav Aleph. Kuf. I'll see who they're quoting in a minute. Kuf Chav. But listen to what he says. He says, the Bezdin, the type of people that you need to be for the Bezdin, that they should be They should know most languages. They need to know most languages, and because in order that the Sanhedrin should not hear from a Meturgaman. Now, we have to see la halacha more about this. Maybe next time, tomorrow, I'll research this a little more. But that's what the Rambam, this is what it says. They need to know most languages. Okay, so that's responsibility. That's why Mordechai, the story of Mordechai, was on the Sanhedrin. He was able to hear Bixen and Seresh when they had plotted to kill the king. I think one of the reasons why he knew how did he hear about the plot? Because he knew their language. They didn't expect the rabbi knows their language, whatever language they were. Who knows what they were talking? Whatever language they were talking. I think some say that he knew their language because good to see you without the crutches. Good to see you. Welcome. So that's the responsibility of being a rabbi and a Sanhedrin. You want to be a rabbi Sanhedrin. One of the qualifications that you need to have is that you got to know languages. Okay. So that's what the Mishnah states. Now, what's the problem if you hear from an interpreter? What's the problem? So if the interpreter makes a mistake in a word, one word, this word makes it could ruin the whole testimony. And that's one idea that's brought down in the Mukha Yosef, that if the interpreter, says something which, sometimes the interpreters don't translate exactly what, interpretations are not always exactly, sometimes they add a drop or they might miss something, and that could make the whole difference, like Nathan says. That's what the Mukha Yosef says. And also, when you hear directly from the mouth of the witnesses, it makes it, you could go ahead and understand it better, you question them better than when you hear from, there's many reasons what perhaps is the reason for this. The Torah, he brings the pasuk. If he's learning it directly from the pasuk, the Torah is not giving a specific reason. The Torah is just saying a law. But the commentators are trying to explain what could be the reason behind this law, and some of these are some of the reasons that they state the importance of hearing directly from the witnesses themselves and not through an interpreter. Okay. Omar, now on the Gemara, starting the Gemara on 6b. Omar Razutra Batuvia Omarav. Razutra Batuvia says the name of Rav. Minayin le'edut miyuchedes. How do we know if you have witnesses? One guy is watching from one window and one guy is watching from another window. And each one is independent of the other. They don't see it together. How do we know that you don't join the two? And the Gemara is going to state, this is specifically in capital punishment cases, the Gemara is going to say, but in monetary cases, we don't say this law. But by capital punishment, in order for two witnesses to come together as witnesses, they both have to be connected. If they're not connected to each other, then they can't come together. They can't. Very good. We're going to see that if they see each other. One way to connect, we spoke about last week, we touched on last week, when you see somebody that connects you with the person. So therefore, when we spoke last week, this discussion of, well, if we're going to go as long as one person sees the other, we're going to say for now that will be sufficient. We're going to go with that opinion. So so where do we know this from? How do you know you can't be independent of the other witness? How do you know you have to see the other witness? Or somehow you have to be connected to the other witness? Shenema. The pasuk says, Lo yumat api erecha. The Torah says we cannot kill a person, we cannot get a suspect, a defendant cannot be killed based on the testimony of one person. That's what the Torah says. Now, the Torah also says at the same time, Al pi shnayim edim yokum davar. The Torah says at the same breath, in the same pasuk, the Torah says you need to have pasuk al pi shnayim edim, on the mouth of two witnesses, and the same pasuk says you don't kill in the mouth of one witness. So if you tell me that you need two witnesses in order to kill somebody, so it's obvious you cannot kill on the testimony of one witness. So why does the pasuk need to tell me if see, there's no such thing as an extra word in the Torah, no such thing as an extra letter in the Torah. The Torah says you kill a person based on the testimony of two people. It's obvious. The inference is what? Yeah, therefore. Say it again. So what does it mean, lo yumat? It means the language way it's used. No, but it says Shoshem yumat hamei. The pasuk said that the 2 or 3 people you kill somebody, so then you don't need to tell me you don't kill based on one witness. That's obvious. If I tell you need 2, of course you don't need 1, doesn't work. So that's going to be the Gemara's killing based on 1 person, right? Because you, or how do you know that? Because the pasuk says you don't kill, but you need 2. So we're talking about. If you have, so the Gemara is going to use from this, the Gemara is going to say, what the Gemara is going to need to try to translate what is the meaning of the words of the pasuk. You cannot kill based on 1 witness. That's what the pasuk says. You can't. That's what the Gemara said. The 2 witnesses are required to be joined. If you have 2 witnesses. Don't work. How do we know that? That's the question. That's the question. By money matters, it does work, but not by cap punishment. Now the Gemara is going to try to teach us where is the source for this law. That's what we're going to be doing now. And the Gemara is going to use the pasuk that says you don't kill based on the testimony of 1 witness. That's going to teach us the case of 1 witness here and 1 witness there. Even though there's 2 witnesses in the room, but they're really called 1 witness. That's how the Gemara is going to explain that the pasuk that lo yomus apirecha means on the testimony of individuals. That's what the Gemara is going to explain. That the pasuk is coming to teach us this law. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Kiva. Good But so obviously, so it was given over from rabbi to student to rabbi to student. For generation to generation. So let's say, Lo Yomut al pi echad. It says, yes. Yes. Right. Right. Now we're not going about the warning. Now we're just saying how many witnesses you need to see, testify. How many witnesses have to testify? So we said you need 2. So then the question is, why does the pasuk tell me that 1 doesn't work? Once you tell me you need 2, you don't need to tell me you can't kill a guy based on 1. The Gemara is trying to explain the meaning of these words. We don't kill based on 1 witness. It seems superfluous that. Right. That's what the Gemara is going to explain. Look at it, Yaron. How do we know when when the testimonies are independent of each other? They're independent witnesses. They're not united. How do you know sheep psula? How do you know that it's invalid? That the testimony of 2 independent witnesses is invalid. What's the source for that law? Shenema. The source is lo yumat al pi erecha. The source is you cannot kill based on the testimony of 1 witness. Now, how is that a source that when 2 individual witnesses you can't use based on the pasuk that says you can't kill based on the testimony of 1 witness? When you have 2 individual witnesses, you have 2 witnesses here. So how do you learn it out? How can we say that the pasuk of lo yumot al pi erecha is teaching us when there's 2 separate witnesses, when the verse itself states you can't kill based on the testimony of 1 witness? How do we know to interpret the pasuk? So how do we know that the verse, when it states you do not kill someone based on the testimony of 1 witness, what does the verse mean? When you have 2 witnesses, but they're individual, they're separate from each other. How do we know that? Say it again. No, the question we say from this pasuk, they don't qualify, correct? But the question is, how do we know that? Mr. Ashby, where do we know this law that if you have 2 witnesses here, one guy in this window, one guy in the other window, and they don't see each other, we say it doesn't work. And where's the source for this? The Gemara wants to know we say a law, source, reason, right? But where's the Torah source? Where is the pasuk in the Torah? We made a statement. We have a statement. How do we know it? Where is the source for this law? Michael, is that clear the question? What's the source for the law? That's all right. That's going to be the source. That's what the Gemara is going to say. Exactly. So the Gemara is like this. My echad. You see, what does it mean? You do not kill someone based on the testimony of one witness. What does that mean? Does it mean literally one witness, or does it mean something else? And what does it mean something else? It means an independent witness. Independent witnesses. We're translating because we already have the sources to show that one witness doesn't work. If only one witness walks into court, we know it doesn't work because it says you need two. So what does the Torah mean when it says you can't kill based on one? That one doesn't mean literally one witness, total. It means individual witnesses, independent witnesses, people that are not connected with another person. That's what the Torah means when it says, what's it? But how do you know them? If this is the source, actually. I mean, you're telling me the law. We're looking for the source. That's based on this pasuk that says lo yumut, even though there's two witnesses coming to court. But the fact that they did not see each other, how do we know that? That's what we're trying to figure it out. They were both there. They're both present. They both saw everything happen. But these guys didn't see each other. They were independent of each other. They don't count. How do we know that? Exactly. This is where we know we need a group. Very well said. But whenever the Torah says two, then you know, right? But if the Torah says in the same pasuk two, you know in that pasuk the eight echad means one. If you say eight by itself, then it would mean two. But if you say two in the same pasuk, it says two, you need two, not one. So obviously the one means one, right? Jake, good. So the Gemara says, "My echad." What does the pasuk mean when it says you cannot kill someone based on the testimony of one witness? Ilema eight echad mamash. Does it mean mamash, Moni Daniel? Does it mean mamash? You cannot kill someone based on the testimony of one witness? That can't be the meaning. May Reisha shaminallah. We know that from the Reisha. Api shnayim edim. The Reisha tells us you need to have two witnesses. So of course one witness doesn't work. So you can't translate the pasuk literally. You know, sometimes the pasuk writes something. It doesn't mean literal. Eye for an eye doesn't mean eye for an eye. Eye for an eye means the value of an eye for an eye. You don't translate it. You don't translate it literally. So here also the Gemara says it can't mean. And we're gonna have some beautiful brachot on the coffees here today, right?
But Rabbi, you know, as you say, it's not literally eye for eye. So why did the Torah keep on mentioning eye for eye?
So Rabbi, I owe you an answer for that. So Rabbi Feinstein said a beautiful idea. Rabbi Feinstein of blessed memory said, the Torah says eye for an eye. Why is it written that way? Even though it means the value of an eye for an eye, because a person should realize if they knock out somebody's eye, they really should be deserving to get their eye knocked out. But the Torah doesn't want that to happen. The Torah wants to pay for the eye. Now, if you look, because if a person would say, if the Torah would just say, if your guy knocks out an eye, you pay for an eye. So someone might say, no big deal, put it on the credit card. A guy who's a person of means, it doesn't bother him. He knocks out the guy's eye, okay, put it on the credit card. But the Torah said, it's only a financial responsibility. Because the Torah says an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, foot for a foot. Torah is telling us the Musa, Rabbi Feinstein said, that you should realize if you knock out somebody's eye, a person should realize his eye should be deserved. Now, who would ever want their eye to be knocked out? Therefore, a person be extra careful if you're doing certain type of activity. How does someone knock out someone's eye? Usually, if you're working in a certain type of work and things are flying around. No, we use this to say sometimes the Torah writes something, but it doesn't mean the literal translation. Say what? A lot of times, exactly. That's it. But he asked the question, what's the reason over there why the Torah wrote it? Okay, back to our Gemara. So the Gemara says, Ela mayachad. What does it mean? You do not kill based on the testimony of one person. Echad mayachad echad echad. It means you don't kill a person based on independent witnesses. There could be 20 witnesses here. If each one if they're not connected with the other guy, you cannot go ahead and kill based on that testimony. No, that you throw out the witnesses. They're invalid witnesses. Why does it have to be a group? Okay, it's a good question. What the reason for the law is? It's a good question. Why do it have to be? It's a good question. It's a good question. The same. It's a good question. What's the reason? What's the reason for the right? Okay.
Or save the person. So, I mean, the person kept dying. So they just want to make it super.
But right. Okay. But that's the idea. But maybe the idea is also when a person commits a crime, Jake, and he commits it in front of people. So maybe it's more of a higher level type of crime when a person commits a crime in a way when it's not so as in the open. Perhaps if the witnesses are not seeing on the same, it's most probably that they're not together. No, but I'm saying, but they didn't see it together. They didn't see each other. So I'm saying it could be that might show a little bit that the crime most likely wasn't done in front in a way that
I think it has to do with the warning, because if they both have to warn one of them.
No, we're going with the opinion that said they don't have to be the ones to warn it. You can have other people warning the guys. The victim, we had opinion, the victim could do the warning. One has to be very close. One has to be very close to the right before the act. Has to be very close to similar. That's why very rarely they kill someone. If they're not doing the warning, they have to hear the warning. There's two people to hear the warning. But doesn't mean you see each other. You have one guy here and one guy there. I hear the warning.
But maybe no point. Maybe it's a matter of trying to make it's a higher level. It's harder to
kill somebody
because they're.
I mean, Ariel's point. It's harder to kill somebody by the fact that you need to have both of them seeing each other together, right? Okay. Tanya Nami Hachi. The Gemara says we learned that a Braita like this supports this ruling, this law. What's the ruling? Lo yumus al pei erechad. I mean, we have a proof. The Braita also brings the same pasuk, this idea. It says you can't kill someone based on the testimony of one witness. Lahavi. What is this pasuk teaching us? When it says you can't kill someone based on the testimony of one witness, Shnayim sheroyin oto. Two people see the act. Echad mechalon zeh. One from this window. Ve'echad mechalon zeh. And one from the other window. What's that? Ve'echad mechalon zeh. Ve'echad mechalon zeh. Ve'ein ro'in zeh zeh. But the witnesses do not see each other. She'ein mitzarfin. If the witnesses don't see each other, they don't join together. That's what the pasuk tells us. And now comes a new chidush. Listen to this chidush. Even if they saw the act one right after the other, they're together. The witnesses are exactly standing in the same spot by the same window, but they did not see it simultaneously. One saw this moment, and the other witness saw the next moment. One right after the other, and now the going to clarify what this means. But there we don't join a mitzarfin. We don't join. One witness sees an act this second, and then he moves away from the window. The other witness sees from the same window. The next moment, we don't join those two together. Now, the obvious question is, what is this case that one guy sees and they're standing together, one guy sees, and then he moves away and the other guy sees, one right after the other, we don't join them. If
From the same place.
they're in the same place, so the Gemara is, they saw each other, they're in the same place. But even if they saw each other, they're in the same, but why do you say they at two different times? So Nathan says, Rabbi, if I could, I'll take what Nathan says too, and I'm going to expound on it. Isn't this obvious? If you have two witnesses, one right after the other, two different times, it's true. They're both in the same place, they see each other. But if they're in two different times, nobody saw a complete act. What happened? One guy saw the guy shoot, and one guy saw the guy die. One guy saw, let's say on Shabbat, you can't walk in Reshut Rabim, in a public domain, you can't walk four amot. So one guy saw you walk 2 amot, the other guy saw the other 2 amot. So nobody saw a complete act. So what's the chidush? The Gemara is going to ask, isn't that obvious that if you have two witnesses, that they see a complete act, each one is there simultaneously. One happens to be in the other window, one happens to be in the other window. It doesn't work. So certainly if each guy only saw a part of an act, certainly it doesn't work. Morris, is that clear? That's going to be the Gemara's question. So how, what do you say? You have to see. We have, they both here, they don't see anything, nothing. They have to see. They have to see. But we're going to see it. We have other, what? Okay, could be, but they didn't. Yeah, that was a question of a rabbi who wanted to hear how we had that. That was that good line. How they acted. Yeah. But you should know there was a, me that by the way, the doctor brought this up. I will share with you but Jake was reminding me about what you said, doctor. There was a Gemara. We had one of the rabbis went into the room went under the bed to hear how this other rabbi, how he conducts himself, to hear the modesty, how he talks to his wife, and what the proper way to go ahead and conduct oneself with one's wife. And another rabbi said that, what do you chutzpah? You go into the room, you go under the bed, and you go under bed and you go ahead and you go to such a place. So he says, you know what? Torah. I need to learn Torah. The same rabbi, the one rabbi walked in front because we don't recommend you to use this. But he said, I want because it is Torah, it has to be done the proper way. A person says, no, everything is okay. So that was that story. But I think the lesson we need to take from it is even one's conducting one's wife, the laws of modesty and how a person should do it right. What? And same with the bathroom. Follow him into the bathroom. Want to see how he conducts himself in the bathroom. What kind of modesty? We learned about that modesty, not to reveal yourself before you need to reveal yourself. There are laws about it. So in brachot. So this is what he. So now getting back to the Dow Gemara. So the Gemara says. Now the Gemara is going to question this second statement. The second statement was, I have a new chiddush. What's the chiddush? Even when two guys at the same window and one's right after the other, it doesn't work. So the Gemara is going to question that. They're two different times. No, the same people involved. And we said it right. Right, but the Gemara is right, but the Gemara is going to say right. But the thing is like this: the way the Rabbi Abaye presented it, the way the Bryce was presented in the Brysa, it says the Brysa says not only two guys on two different windows doesn't work if they don't see each other. Even one after the other, even one after the other doesn't work from the same window. So the Gemara says, that's not even. It's more. It's obvious. It's not even. Even means I'm telling you a new chiddush. Not only I'm telling you this chiddush, I'm telling you something even further, even more than the first. The Gemara's question is, it's not even, it's more obvious. So you don't need to tell me the second. If you tell me A and I can figure out B, you don't need to tell me B. So if you tell me the first law, you don't need to tell me, and then, now you tell me the next law when it's obvious it can be learned out from the first law. That's the Gemara's question. Look how the Gemara says it. What do you say, Mr. Edwin? Well, that's just telling us something exactly. If you have one guy from this window, one guy from the other window, one guy sees the whole thing. The other guy also sees the whole thing. One guy is this window, one guy is the other one. They see the whole thing simultaneously. But the problem is, since they don't see each other, you tell me that even though they both see the same act, they're both there at the same time. But if the witnesses don't see each other, you don't join them in. So if they're one after the other, if they see something after the other guy, certainly each guy only saw a half an act. So do you need to tell me when each guy only sees a half an act? Each witness only sees half an act. You need to tell me that it doesn't work. If when each witness saw a whole act, it doesn't work because they wouldn't see each other. So certainly when you only see half an act, you know it's the word. The Gemara says an amazing answer. Here's the case. What's the case? Amalei lo nitzrucha ela leboil es ha'erva. What's the case? Each person saw a whole act. What was the whole act they saw? They saw Reuven having relations with a woman. They saw him, he was sleeping with a married woman. So one witness saw this, each one saw a whole act. It's not like he saw a half an act. 2 amot and then 2 amot. Or one guy saw the guy shoot the arrow and the other guy went into the guy. No. Each witness saw the whole act. What was the whole act? The whole act, the sin is he was sleeping with this woman. That's the whole act. Witness number 1 saw the whole act. Witness number 2 saw this whole act. It wasn't a half an act, just like 2 amot to 2 amot. Exactly. They both saw the exact same thing, the exact what was being done, but it was done one right. Right. And it's not a half an act. It's not like 2 amot to 2 amot. It's only the 4 that's the problem. And then you went Torah, and then. But if you get but if he only saw 2 amot, that's like 4 amot. He saw the whole thing. 4, as if you saw the whole 4 amot, but that's the whole sin. It's not like shooting. The whole sin is that sin of sleeping with her. Each guy saw the whole thing. And they were standing next to each other. They were witnesses for the same window. They were standing next to each other, but at different times. And that's the chiddush. The chiddush is that's why it's another chiddush. If it was not at the same time, it was different times. That's still called independent of each other. And in order for in order for the witnesses to go ahead and prosecute someone, it has to be at the same time as well. It's not enough that they see each other, the witnesses. What are get eliminated? Because they did not see together at the same time. One saw at 9:01, and one saw at 9:01 and 5 seconds. And then he stepped away. This one saw 9:01 and 6. God bless you, 10 seconds. And separate, right. Like Michael said, and we're going to end with what Michael said. It's the same thing would be if you have 2 witnesses. One witness saw that he walked 4 amot on Shabbat. And the next witness, a second later, sees another 4 amot, but no good. We cannot prosecute a guy 2 different times, even though each one saw a full act, but it won't be chayav. Okay, I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. Time flies when you're having fun. וחנני בן הקשה אומר, רוצה הקדוש ברוך הוא זך אצל לפי תחיב עליו תורה מצווה שלמה, אדוני חפץ למעשה כל ידיל תורה וידיע.
Amen.
אמן. אמן, יהי שמרה מבורך ובימיו. אמן. אמן.
יעשה שלום לרמ"ב וברחמיו יעשה שלום עלינו והכל עמו ישראל ונראה אמן.
Reason win.
How more so that it's.
Hold on 1 second. Thank you very much for joining, everybody. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Son's a very, very special guy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Scott, you gonna catch up with happening? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear the question, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very nice, very nice. Yes, thank you so much. Very, very nice. Yes, you saw it, brother. Thank you. Have a great day. I'll meet you upstairs. Yes.